be inherently fat phobic because it signals to fat people and really everybody that it's bad, right? So if you don't want to use it, it means that it's bad and it reinforces that thin is good, and that's not what we want to do. All fat does is describe somebody's body shape, and it's not a negative descriptor. And so the body positivity community has really tried to like reclaim this word as their own, and it's generally preferred over the medical terms of overweight and obese because those carry medical connotations, right? You fall into a certain BMI category and you get this status, whereas they're giving themselves this status and there's no medical connotation to it. So with that, this is my last slide, and it's sort of just this call to action. So we all live in a society, we all talk to people, we all interact with people, and there's all things we can just stop doing. And the first is equating thinness with health. We really don't know that someone's healthy based on how they look or how they got there. The other thing is to stop labeling foods as good and bad and like guilting people for eating a certain way. We can also stop using the terms overweight and obese when that's not really what we're talking about, when fat is actually the appropriate descriptor, and a way to not medicalize somebody's body. In terms of physicians, in med school, they really don't get any nutrition education. Maybe a class. Some might just get a lecture. So a lot is missed. This whole idea that weight is mainly biological, right? There's really nothing that we can do that's going to change our weight. Our body's just kind of at this set point based on genetic factors. I mean, other things do play a role, but it's mainly genetics. Most of them aren't taught that, right? So they kind of carry this into their practice, like, oh, you can definitely lose weight. You should just like move your body more. And you should just eat healthy. So I mean, I do think that this kind of needs to start with changing like how we educate physicians in med school. The problem is they're taught for the test. So if it's not on the MCAT, it's just not taught because it's like, well, they need to pass this test and that's what's important. So I think you need to get it on the MCAT. Because once it's on the MCAT, then it's important, and then they're going to learn it. But, I mean, a lot of weight is physiology, and they don't necessarily come out being physiologists either, but I think that they can come out with a better understanding of how to cater to their patients. And if you have a fat individual come into your office, and they don't bring up their weight, don't bring it up. Like, you don't need to talk about it. If someone's not bringing it up to you, there's no need for you to bring it up. They're there for other things, and, like, let's move on. I also think that you don't need to be weighed at every office visit. I actually refuse to get weighed when I go in because it's like, what do you need this for? Like, I have an earache. Like, unless you need to dose medication based on my body weight, or that is somehow going to be a factor in my diagnosis, like, you don't need to do it. And the interesting thing is they'll be like, oh, well, I'm sure you're fine anyways. And I'm like, why do you think that? You haven't taken any blood work from me. Like, how would you know? So I think kind of like also pushing back as a patient, like, why do you need this? And they're usually just like, okay, well, can you just tell me? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, okay. Like, they think it's super weird, but I'm like, I'm going to do it because you don't need to know. So I think it kind of like goes both ways, and it might take physicians several decades, maybe as like the younger group comes up and learns about this in school, but I think the disconnect happens a lot of ways. But yeah, it's a big part of the MCAT, so they are forced to learn it.
So let's say you had somebody like come to you and they're like, hi, I would like to lose weight. Would your approach be to redirect that toward like healthier mindset or lifestyle changes, and how would you approach that situation without wasting on it?
So that's happened to me a lot. I kind of like don't always tell people that I'm a dietitian because usually their first thing is like, how can I lose weight, and tell me how to eat. Can you make me a food plan? I'm like, that sounds horrible. I don't want to do any of that. And I mean, my philosophy is I think it's unethical to tell you how to lose weight because you're not going to be able to do it long term. And the data that we have shows that when people gain and lose mass amounts of weight, that actually increases the risk of other very serious health outcomes like cancer and cardiovascular disease. So I feel like I'm actually doing you a disservice and worsening your health by telling you what to do to lose weight because I know you're not going to be able to do it long term, and it's no failing of your own. It's millions of years of evolution that have basically primed us to retain calories because for most of human existence, we've been in a state of famine. So when you diet, your body thinks you're starving. So it clings to all the calories that you eat, all the fat you eat, it stores it immediately because it thinks it needs to save you. So you know, from that perspective, like, I try to tell them that, and I try to, like, you know, I don't want to just blow them off, right? Because this desire to lose weight comes from a very real place, and it's that we value thin bodies, and everyone wants to be valued and feel included and feel worthy. And it's to reinforce, like, but you are, and like, I'm sorry that society has taught you that. You know, this is the science behind it, not if you're interested in something that you can actually follow. And you're probably not gonna lose any weight, but if you're actually serious about just being healthier, like, that's gonna help you. So I think it's getting to like what it is they actually want, and if it's just weight loss, and it can help you, but if you need suggestions on how to like maybe incorporate some more healthful behaviors, yeah, I can tell you those things. But that's kind of how those conversations have gone, and like you can kind of see they're sad, but I actually think it's super liberating to feel like I'm not responsible for my weight. Like, I actually find that to be like kind of a cool thing. Like, it's not a failure of my own or anything, like it just is what it is. And I feel like that should be a good thing to people. Like, it's nothing you've done, it's just your genetics. But that's not what people want to hear. They want to feel they can do something most of the time, but I think